All right. Thanks, Patch. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Week 10 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SIN YouTube page. The old apps guy, the pub master with you. And Mark, it's Week 10.
Oh,
I have to ask you this because you always claim to be the old apps guy. Does time just fly when you get older?
yes. Unfortunately, my son went from one to four like in a blink of an eye. So, yeah, time flies as you're getting old. I can't believe we're halfway through the season.
I also still can't believe it's not butter, but that's a whole nother conversation. All right. So I do want to start with a little bit of breaking news. This does not pertain to the NFL. This does pertain to college football. Texas A&M is expected to announce they are moving on from head coach Jimbo Fisher. Um, Jimbo will be paid $77 million approximately to not coach Texas A&M. So we'll the first big domino in the college football landscape coaching carousel dropped.
Yeah, that and the Jim Harbaugh movement, all the more fun.
Well, all right. Do you want to talk a little bit about Harbaugh? Do you
Yeah.
want to?
Just break it down for everybody quickly.
Okay. So Jim Harbaugh has been suspended for the rest of the regular season, essentially by the Big Ten Conference for a sign stealing scandal, where a gentleman by the name of Connor Stallions, I'm not even sure if that's his last name or if that's just what he wants people to refer him to as, was picking up offensive signals from other teams, this, that, and the third. The Big Ten did say they didn't have a lot of evidence, yet Harbaugh is still suspended. Here's the thing, and I'm going to go very quickly on this. There's two parts of this, and then if Mark, you want to chime in, go for it. I feel like the NCAA's had it in for Jim Harbaugh for a little bit. Remember, he got suspended at the beginning of the year for some stupid recruitment violation thing,
Yeah.
recruiting, which, by the way, every college coach does it. I don't really get that. So I think the NCAA's had, which listen, first of all, the NCAA is still very a massive issue for me, but I think they had it out for Jim Harbaugh. That's part one. Part two, I wonder if you're Jim Harbaugh at this point, unless if Michigan goes, runs the table, they win the national title. Jim Harbaugh's making the jump back to the NFL. I don't see a reason why he would have to stay at Michigan, put up with the NCAA's nonsense. At this point, it would just be like I've done everything I've wanted to do. If they win the national title, if they don't win the national title, I'm not 100% sure. But if Michigan were to win the national championship, I think Jim Harbaugh would make the jump back to the NFL.
Not to overstate what Mike said, Mike, covered it perfectly. I couldn't agree more. He does have a hearing coming up this week, and it's the appeal hearing. So we'll see what officially happens. But I say, unless they win the title, yeah, I think there's a big chance Harbaugh's back in the NFL.
Yeah, and listen, we can go through
Bunch
places
of teams,
he could go. I mean, there's going to be
a lot.
I think there's going to be a big list this year of NFL coaches who are going to get fired.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, and we'll start with what opened up Week 10 because man, I thought the Jets and Giants were going to set football back. I thought this game was also going to set football back a little bit. But the Chicago Bears defeat the Carolina Panthers by a score of 16-13 on Thursday night. Bryce Young was 21 to 38 for 185 yards for the Panthers. For the Bears, Tyson Bagnet was 20 to 33 for 162 yards. Dante Foreman, 21 carries, 80 yards and a touchdown. And Panther legend DJ Moore had 5 catches for 58 yards. The only Panther touchdown was a punt return. Um, so Mark, your thoughts here on Bears and the
Okay,
Panthers?
so this game had so much grounding to it that it was basically LaGuardia Airport during a blizzard. Nothing was going in the air. Everything was on the ground. And let's face it, you weren't having number one and number two quarterbacks in the league here go against each other with top two wide receivers. So, Dr. Foreman did what was needed to do, and he was relied on. And without Justin Fields, and we don't know how long they're really going to be out with him, it's really more on Foreman's back for this team because Tyler Bagnett, I don't know if anybody saw the post. There was a post about the last 10 teams he faced, and the five college teams he faced were hysterical. The Philadelphia School of Mines or something like that. It was ridiculous how funny it was. And then he's now QBing in the NFL. The kid didn't make too many errors. He missed a couple of passes that should have been there, but Bryce Young didn't make any errors either. You know, they're both going to learn, but you have to figure that once Fields is healthy, he'll be back, and Bagnett will go back to number two.
So this is the list. You sent this to
Yeah.
me on Messenger. The Indiana University of Pennsylvania,
Right?
the University of New Haven, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, the Colorado School of Mines,
The Colorado School of Mines, right?
Slippery Rock University, and then translate to the NFL, Vikings, Raiders, Chargers, Saints, and the Panthers.
That's your Cinderella story right there. I mean,
Well, here's the thing, and you brought it up in very interesting. What happens when Justin Fields comes back? Because it's not like Tyson Bagnett's played poorly.
no, he has not.
He's gonna make mistakes. He's a Division II undrafted rookie. Mistakes are gonna happen. Justin Fields was making mistakes too. But if you're the Bears, here's why this is a win-win situation for the Bears when Justin Fields comes back. Because if Justin Fields comes back and he plays spectacular football, the Bears have made this trade with a team named the Carolina Panthers, where the Panthers traded up for the number one pick last year, and in return, the Bears got their first round pick this year. Right now, that'd be the number one pick again.
Right. And and you have to think, what are they going to do with the fact that they could potentially have Caleb Williams?
Well, and that's the point I'm getting to, because if
Yeah.
Justin Fields comes back and he plays well enough to where you believe he is a franchise quarterback, you're either A, going to get a haul back for that number one pick, or
Mm-hmm.
B, you're going to take the best receiver in the draft in Marvin Harrison Jr., who, by the way, it wouldn't be a tough acclamation for him because he plays at Ohio State. By the way,
See that catch?
Justin Fields went to Ohio State. Now, they never played together, but still, there would be some resemblance of a connection there. And then you'd have a receiving combination of DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison Jr.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. made some catch yesterday. I mean,
He's
it
so
was.
good.
It wasn't like Odell Beckham backflip in the air catch, but still one-handed. Didn't even see the ball. This kid is taller than his father, is more agility than his father. No offense to Marvin Harrison Sr.
No,
here at all.
he's more explosive.
Yes. And if you're looking at a team like Chicago, like Mike said, you have that first round pick. If you're good with Justin Fields, you don't need Caleb Williams. And especially with the headache, and we'll get into that eventually, the headache he wants part ownership and organization wherever he goes. So that's going to be an issue we'll deal with down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike's right. If you trade out of that first spot, somebody's going to take Caleb Williams, or you just be brazen enough and just take Harrison one.
And the other thing is this: if you're thinking about taking Caleb Williams at one and Justin Fields plays well, there's a team out there that's going to give you a nice crop of things for Justin Fields as
Right.
well.
So it's almost a win-win for the Bears.
It
And we
very
never
much
like to
is a win-win.
we never like to say that because we always end up with a loss somehow. Like, God
Yeah.
forbid this or that happens. So, but if you're a Chicago Bears fan, Mike said it the way you should be looking at it is either we're going to get massive compensation and Justin Fields will go and he'll have 1 year plus then his option year. Now we got Caleb Williams. Okay, we start over. However, now we trade again, and now we somehow arrange us to have 1 and 2, and you end up getting Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. out of it. It could happen. Fantasy, but it could happen.
It could. And what they would probably have to do is they'd have to lose out and hope the Cardinals win some games. And we will talk about the Cardinals in a couple of minutes because they're getting some nice pieces back in their lineup
Oh,
today.
yeah. Things are changing in the second half of the season.
Yeah, things are going to go well for the Cactuses.
Mm.
But flip side this to the Panthers. And the Panthers really stood pat at the trade deadline where we thought, hey, they had some pieces you could sell off, whether it's a Brian Burns, Jeremy, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. They were also on the market for a receiver, which never came to fruition. I wrote about this for the network. You check it out, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. This is not on Bryce Young. And the Panthers made a move because they believe Bryce Young is their guy. He's the future face of the franchise. He's the guy. He was the guy that they couldn't miss. But what you did when you moved up to get Bryce Young, you sacrificed draft capital and you sacrificed DJ Moore, who for your organization was your bona fide number one receiver. What does that mean? I'm going to tell you. There were rumors that the Panthers were in on a Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. They wanted back a number one receiver at the trade deadline. But when you have that guy in your building, it's hard to relinquish it. And I'm not saying Bryce Young has played poorly. He struggled, but the offensive line hasn't been good. The receivers outside of Adam Thielen haven't been good. I mean, Miles Sanders has been dreadful. That's been a bad signing.
And I said that at the beginning of the season. That was a horrible move.
Yeah, and the defense can only keep you in games for so long. So this is a team where outside of Bryce Young, I don't know what to expect of them. I also don't know what the future holds because listen, they expected better. And Frank Reich, when they had Frank Reich, and they're now 1-8 on the season. They
Yeah,
have issues there in Carolina.
yeah, and you can see it, but this isn't the Houston Texans where we're going to compare Bryce Young to CJ
No,
Stroud. You could at the beginning of the year before they even played it down, but it's two different scenarios right now. It's two different teams. So Bryce Young unfortunately got the unlucky role, but it's like Mike said, he hasn't played poorly. He just hasn't been able to give him a chance to show what he really can do. And it comes down to, like Mike said, Miles Sanders. Look, Miles Sanders didn't have a great year for Philadelphia last year either. I have never liked him in the NFL. And that's not because he was an Eagle. It's because I don't like his style of running. It's too hard and he's too injured often. And as we saw, he's a bust down with no offensive line to give him any running lanes. But I think the biggest bust in Carolina is Terrence Marshall Jr.
yep.
This was a kid who was drafted because of his ability, what he did in college. It hasn't translated to the NFL at all.
And
So,
he's go ahead.
no, so when you look at the whole offensive production, yeah, and you got Mingo, yeah, but it's Adam Thielen, and Adam Thielen's what, 92 years old?
33.
Yeah, I'm making a joke at the old guy, but you can't expect Adam Thielen to be the 120 pass catcher he was when he was so excellent with the Vikings.
And you brought up an interesting name when you brought up Terrence Marshall because he's a guy who I think succeeded because of the role he had in college. He was the number three wide receiver for Joe Burrow, and he was sitting behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, he had a great uh, year at LSU. I just look when you draft a rookie quarterback, you have to surround them with good enough players. I, I don't mean to make. I'm going to go to another team for a second. Look at New England with Mac Jones. What have they ever surrounded Mac Jones with? That's why you can't. We don't know what Mac Jones is. They don't have the talent to say Mac is good, Mac is bad. I don't know. Robert Kraft, get me some macaroni and cheese. But flip side to another Alabama quarterback, Tua. We know what Tua was, and then all of a sudden the Dolphins get him Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Boom. It works. You can't judge a guy when he doesn't have the talent. Sometimes it's coaching too, but Carolina's in for a very interesting offseason. They don't have a first round pick as of yet, unless they make a trade for one. They need a receiver. You brought up the Miles Sanders thing. All the injuries are the same with him. It's a hamstring. It's always his hamstring. And, Chuba Hubbard's out snapped in the past couple of weeks. It's a great name, by the way. The offensive line, which they put a lot of draft intel into, still stinks.
Yep.
I mean,
And this year, you got some big names for offensive line. You
yeah,
got Alt out of Notre Dame. That's just to name one of the few. I mean, so it's not
yeah.
like they're not going to have opportunities to try to step it up there a little bit.
But again, you could hit a home run in the first round if you had a pick.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to asset management. I get it. You're banking on Bryce Young to be the guy, and he's been solid. But now you're 1-8, and the fans don't have anything to look forward to in April because you don't have that first round pick. So you're going to have to hit basically on every other pick.
Right.
You know, to make sure this works. By the way, you wanted a number one receiver at the trade deadline, and you had DJ Moore in your building, and you traded him this year. You got to come away in free agency with a number one receiver.
I agree with you.
And by the way, top of the mark, I would go top of the market. I would go get T. Higgins. That would be my guy if I'm Carolina. Mike
Okay.
Evans is 31 or 32, so
And
he
as
wouldn't be
was
my
the
top
step.
choice. Unless you're going to trade for a Sutton or a Judy, which I don't know what Denver's plans are. I would make a hard push on T. Higgins.
I could
Unless
see.
since he finds a way to re up, which
Who knows?
who knows? All right. So that was Thursday night. Now we're on to today. We're on to
He's good.
today. And we mentioned it before. The Cardinals are going to get some reinforcements back.
But while he plays Call of Duty,
Led by quarterback Kyler Murray returns after tearing his ACL. James Conner is also expected to return today. So, Mark, here is the one part question on Kyler Murray. What does Kyler Murray returning mean for the Cardinals?
it means life. You know, it means the fans in the stadium are finally going to have something to look forward to. Look, let's not take away what Josh Dobbs did in Arizona. He didn't go out there to tank or anything. he played his best, and now he did a great job when he got over to Minnesota. So let's not take anything away from him. For Kyler Murray, this is a lifeline for the Cardinals organization, and it's also going to boost morale a little bit on this team, knowing, hey, look, we got this guy back. We know what he did with DeAndre Hopkins. We got James Connors back, so we're not going to rely too much on Kyler running the ball because let's face it, anytime he goes to scramble, everybody's going to be holding their breath through the first couple of times. And then, you know, the receivers will do what they've been doing. And, now you got a team that has to make a decision. Are they a playoff team? No, but they can show why free agents should come here in the next season. That they can accomplish. Trying to go for the number one pick makes no sense now that they're going to go with Kyler Murray, so they don't have to have the number one pick this year.
The next 8 weeks, Kyler Murray's under audition. He is auditioning himself for one of two roles. He's either the starting quarterback in Arizona or he's the starting quarterback in place to be determined.
So you're talking another Justin Fields situation.
I'm talking another Justin Fields situation
Okay.
because of this reason. This is not the general manager. This is not the head coach who drafted Kyler Murray. So you're going into that realm of what's going on. And let's be real honest here. Kyler Murray, let me tell you right now, I hate the contract. I've been vocal about it for a long time. Hate it. Kyler Murray has shown you more overall than Justin Fields has. So if
Yes.
you're a team who needs a quarterback, I don't know, I'm going to shout you out right here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would be watching very closely on what Kyler Murray does the rest of the season. But here's the other part, Mark, and you said it. They're one right now. They're 1-8, and right now they'd be locked in at the number 2 pick.
Correct.
So if they're picking it 1 or 2, and it will make a difference. Argument's sake, if Chicago's at 1, which they would be because Carolina's bad, Chicago might take Caleb Williams. They may not. Who knows what they do? But argument's sake, Chicago's okay with Justin Fields, and they said, we're going to pass on Caleb Williams. You're the Cardinals at 2. You're looking around going, we could do this. We can get Caleb Williams, and then we could trade Kyler to wherever they're going to trade him to. And now we have a new coach, new GM, new quarterback. It breathes new, fresh air into a place that really kind of needs it because they're having off the field issues with, if you've read the stories about how the front offices work, which has not been good. They also look at Arizona sports scene as a whole. The Suns have NBA title aspirations. The Diamondbacks just went to the World Series. And then there's the Cardinals and the Coyotes. I mean, so Kyler Murray's next 8 games, and this is why it's so important for them to play him, is let's see what he is. And if he plays well and, the organization says, okay, but we'd rather go in a different direction, there's going to be a team who takes the chance.
If he can prove, like you said, over the next 8 weeks, he proves that knee is fully rehabilitated and he can do the stuff he was doing before it got injured, like that. I mean, look, yeah, I'm going to shout out that one play. That play to Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins was in the perfect spot, but DeAndre Hopkins made the catch. But he's got to be able to show he can scramble for a few minutes, a few seconds, and then be able to air it out 50, 55 yards.
And the other part is this. Argument say Kyler Murray shows you he's still that guy that you believe in. You're at number 2. You could take Marvin Harrison Jr. if the Bears decide to go the Caleb Williams route.
Exactly. So again, it's gonna be fun to watch Carolina, you know, play over the next 8 weeks. One win here or there, changes the whole draft order.
It really does. And let's not fool ourselves because there are teams with 2 wins who are looking around and go, we might be in that spot. New England. Uh,
Oh,
and how about the team we'll transition into right now? The New York Giants. Daniel
yeah.
Jones, torn ACL. He's done for the year. And let me be frank when I say this. The Danny Dimes era, it's over.
It never was.
I
I'm
know.
sorry. I'm sorry to say it like that. Look, and yes, there's a little bias because I am the
You're
Dallas
not
fan.
sorry to say.
No, no, there's bias because I'm the Dallas fan. Look, when the Giants made the trade for Eli Manning years ago, you knew what you were getting with Eli Manning. Okay. And it proved. No offense to my Cowboys. It proved. He won two
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowls. He made it to many a Pro Bowl, and he might not have been the best in the league, but he was consistent. Uh, you know,
And he's eventually going to be wearing a gold jacket.
yes. I would he be a first in like his brother? I don't
No,
know. I don't
probably
want to
not.
say. I don't want to say no because anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, within his first two or three tries, he's going to be in. I might have hated Eli Manning because he was on the Giants, but I respected what he did as a football player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made a lot of nothing and turned it into something. Yes, he had the help from Tiki Barber and all that, but let's fast forward to now because we don't want to talk about yesteryear. The Danny Dimes era, when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones, I laughed and I said, what a mistake. I didn't like the kid in college. Now you have the kid his first 4 years, and last year, luckily, pulls them into the playoffs. Giants think they're set. They have their man. They had no team. They have no team. They have a guy who can scramble. They have no good receivers. Don't tell me Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are top 10 receivers. No, they're lucky if they're top 30. Okay. Jalen Hyatt, has been on and off injured, and he was supposed to come in and be explosive. And Daryl Walker hasn't even been uh, 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 a bright spot. Now you got famous actor Danny DeVito and Matt. I was an Eagle and know how to lob a ball to another team. Barkley as your 1 and 2. If you're a Giants fan, you're happy this game isn't in New York. It's in Dallas. And trust me, if this game was in New York, it wouldn't be the first time that the home team was pelted with stuff from the stadium. And I think it would have happened. So I'm kind of glad it's in Dallas. But yeah, the Daniel Jones era is over. What they're going to do, who knows?
The Giants put themselves in a tough predicament. The reason I say that is because when you draft a guy in the first round, you have the fifth year option.
Correct.
So Joe Judge got fired. Dave Gettleman retired, mutually agreed to part ways, whatever you want to say. Joe Shane, Brian Dable come in. Now, they did not draft Daniel Jones, and they decided, you know what? We're not going to pick up the fifth year option on Daniel Jones. Last year, Daniel Jones was the best year of his career, mainly because they're not putting the ball in his hands as much because Saquon was healthy for most of last year. Now the Giants are in a pickle because if you franchise tag Daniel Jones, it's like 40 million. If you sign him
Mm-hmm.
long term, it's 40 plus million. Or do you go and see the market? Giants is like, okay, we're gonna pay him 4 years, whatever the money was, but in reality, they could get out of it after next year. It's just that's they struck out. But you're right. They don't have the talent at receiver. They've never had the talent at the receiver position for him. Now,
Right.
Eli Manning, they were able to find some guys. Victor Cruz was a nice find. Hakeem Nicks was a good find.
Yeah.
Mario Manningham was a good find. They haven't found that guy yet. Jalen Hyatt, he's had moments.
Yes.
Slayton, Shepard, always
And
hurt.
Slayton was supposed to be this dynamic receiver when
Yeah,
they drafted him.
but that's the problem with the offense. They don't push the ball enough for a guy like Slayton and a guy like Hyatt to both be on the field at the same time. Shepard's always hurt. Darren Waller's now hurt. The interesting decision is going to be Saquon, what happens there. But here's the thing. If you're Brian Dable, you don't want to hear this. I said it on Wishbone this week. I'll say it again. Memo to every Giant fan watching, listening. Tank. Tank, 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 tank. Lose, lose, lose.
Well, they're going to do that today to Dallas. I mean,
No. I'm not just talking about today. Rest of the year. It's over.
well, you have no starting quarterback. So, I mean, let's call
Your
it as it is.
offensive line is offensive to watch.
Right. You have no real outlet except Saquon Barkley. And here's what I see happening with Saquon Barkley. Look, the guy was explosive in college. He was explosive in his first year, two, before he got that horrific knee injury. Then he came back a year later, was okay, then got the ankle injury, and then another ankle. Unfortunately, he was given the ball so much, it's almost like a Steven Strasburg, Matt Harvey problem where he was overused and too often injured. So here's what the Giants can do. The Giants can make one or two choices. They can tag him. And if they tag him this year, it's upwards around, I think, 16 to 17 million. If they let him go, there's only one team I see him going to, and that's Kansas City, because that's where he wants to go to. He has made it very clear he is interested in playing with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So picture next. Look, nothing against Isaiah Pacheco. He is very, very good. But you get Saquon Barkley, he becomes your number two, and a good change of pace back, who might get a whole drive and give Barkley a break. So there's where I see that happen. And that's where I have on the Giants. As for Dallas, enough said. Mic drop. There you go.
Yeah. That defense better get me fantasy points. That's all I'm
Oh,
going to say.
yeah, trust me, they better, yes.
But here's the one thing I'll say on Barkley. I think the running back position is going to be very interesting to watch this offseason. Not because of price tags, because of names. Barkley. What do the Titans do with Derrick Henry?
Yep.
What's going to happen with some other guys? J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore. What do the Steelers think about with Najee Harris? There's a lot of interesting things that could float around running backs this offseason. Austin Eckler, is another one.
But they also have to learn what they're worth.
Oh, 100%.
Running backs have to learn. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, look, the Dallas man, Ezekiel Elliott ruined it for all running backs, contract-wise. So they have to understand.
He's earning his keep with New England today. He's got 5 carries for 22 yards.
4 yards a carry. A lot better than he was doing in Dallas, but he was getting 8 carries for 22 yards at that point. And that's said about poor Zeke.
So just to let everyone know, last international game of the year, it's in Germany. The Colts lead the Patriots 7-3. 1-yard touchdown run by Jonathan Taylor in the first quarter.
And not tool-time Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Like my Tim Allen impersonation. Home Improvement. Great show. All right. We're going to keep it at MetLife because there's been rumblings in New York. The other team. Dan's not here, so we could talk about this a little bit. To say Zach Wilson was good on Monday night against the Chargers would be an understatement, Mark. What should the Jets do here with Zach Wilson? Should they keep playing him? Do you bench him? Uh, what do you do here?
You know, it's an interesting situation, unfortunately. For the Jets, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, is your quarterback. So you're not worried about who's going to be your quarterback next year. So the Jets, like a few other teams we talked about, have that two-way street. They either tell Zach Wilson to go out there and play. You play until you can't play. It's like the old USA hockey thing. Until you recognize where you belong, you don't give up. The New York Jets have been a solid football team for over 50 years, and New York hates quitters. So I don't see them benching Zach Wilson. If they do, then yes, and then it's we win, we lose, we lose. But your injuries in your defense are your big questions. Is Sauce Gardner okay to go tonight? A lot of things. So I want to see the Jets succeed. I mean, I think they're playing Oakland, correct?
They're
No.
playing the Raiders. That's
Yeah,
a Sunday night game.
right.
For God knows whatever reason, that's a Sunday night game.
Well, everybody thought at this point, last year, the Raiders and the Jets would be the talk about teams with all the way they were set up. But
We talk
now
about
we're
them for
talking,
other reasons.
right. You look at this game tonight, and I don't see it more being the Jets offense that has to do this. I think it's the Jets defense that has to win this game tonight.
I think the Jets defense will win this game tonight because that's where I'm at on the Raiders. Excuse me. Here's the thing on Zach Wilson, and there's two parts to this. One, how does an organization screw up so badly that they go get a 40-year-old quarterback, yet they don't have the resemblance of a backup to that 40-year-old quarterback? Now, this is not all Zach Wilson's fault. It's on Nathaniel Hackett for not adjusting. It's on Joe Douglas for not, working the offensive line as well as maybe he could have, or getting that backup quarterback. It's on Robert Saleh, too, for only taking credit for what his defense does as opposed to being a real head coach. When you acquire Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson can't be a part of this team. And I say this not because Zach Wilson can't succeed elsewhere. I say it because the moment Aaron Rodgers got hurt, most Jet fans got into a depression about Zach Wilson having to play, knowing what he is. So the moment Zach Wilson struggles, you've lost the fan base. And the
And
moment
that's
you lose the fan base is the moment you lose a lot of other stuff.
and that's why I made the comment I did saying I'm glad this Dallas game is in Dallas because trust me, New York is the most brutalist state to play in,
Yeah.
fan wise. And
But
I'm not just talking Giants, and I'm not just talking Jets. This
any
is Knicks,
sport,
Rangers, baseball, hockey,
Knicks,
whatever. Yeah.
listen, you, the Knicks for 20 plus years were an atrocity. They couldn't sign free agents. They couldn't make trades. They couldn't draft. The only thing they could do was play basketball. And there were times I would think college teams could beat them.
Yeah.
But the fans always have a right to be upset when you don't do things the right way. Now,
I mean, it's not Philadelphia where snipers would be coming out to shoot the coaches.
I mean, they pelt Santa Claus with snowballs for Pete's sake.
Snowball. I mean, but let me tell you, when New York fans are unhappy, they let you know it. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, you're right. But here's the thing on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson could be good. He just can't be good in New York because it's already the Broadway play is already written. Now, here's the other part of this that I think puts a lot more pressure on Zach Wilson that I don't think the organization realizes. Every time Aaron Rodgers throws a ball on a sideline, every time Aaron Rodgers shows up at MetLife Stadium, you are giving people false hope that you are going to return because they're like, all right, Zach, if you keep us alive, Aaron's going to take us to the promised land. But what happens if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back? I don't know if you caught the hot mic, everybody, with him and Derwin James when Derwin James says, oh, hey, when are you coming back? Aaron Rodgers goes, oh, could be a couple of weeks. And then the next day on the Pat McAfee show, shout out Pat McAfee, the legend. He goes, oh, it's going to be longer than that.
Yeah.
Well, why would you say to Derwin James it's going to be a couple of weeks when in reality, it's a longer term situation? Why does the spotlight, and listen, I was an Aaron Rodgers guy in Green Bay. I still feel the Packers did him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you have turned New York and you've put the spotlight clearly on you.
Yeah. And
And
that's
the biggest loser in this is Zach Wilson.
exactly. And we knew no matter what was going to happen this year, Zach Wilson was not going to start. It was going to be somebody else, whether it was Aaron Rodgers or whatnot. Zach Wilson got a reprieve. He hasn't used it well, but yet again, besides Garrett Wilson, they don't use Breece Hall like they should.
Mm-hmm.
Breece, I mean, and I kind of understand it a little bit. He's coming back from that horrific injury against Denver last year, but it's not the first game he's been back. We're half the season. Let the kid run the ball more than 15 times. Get the pressure off Wilson more. Make that offensive line that you're paying do something.
You're right. The Dalvin Cook signing's been a massive failure?
That was the biggest joke. I at first when I heard it, I was like, makes sense, but then you see he's used 3 carries, 4 carries. What's the point? And you're paying him half of what his contract was? Come on.
And then when you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you got to bring in his friends.
Well, you got
Randall Cobb,
Lazard.
who wasn't even dressed Monday night. But then Alan Lazard to 4 years, 44 million. Alan Lazard has had a dreadful year. He's dropped passes. He's had issues. Uh, Not the thing you were hoping for. And I get it. But you've worked with Zach Wilson in practice, and there just is no chemistry there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to make this abundantly clear. The defense is immensely talented, top 5 in the league, one of the better. The offense isn't that good. But the one thing that drives me nuts about the New York Jets is the head coach has never learned. Because when he said what he said Monday night post game, defense played great, special teams gave up a touchdown, offense was inconsistent. Special teams gave up 1 touchdown, 7 points. Your offense scored 6. So no matter what happened, you lose not because the special teams was bad, because your offense was incompetent. And I get it. You're trying to protect Zach. You're trying to do what you got to do. The other part of this is the Jets commit way too many penalties a game. And let's be real honest here. The Jets should have lost the first Bills game if Josh Allen didn't, turn the ball over. They should have lost the Giants game if Graham Gano wasn't in on the tank. I get it. You're talented. You're good. You're waiting on Aaron Rodgers to come back. Here's the news flash, ladies and gentlemen. I would be absolutely stunned if Aaron Rodgers came back at any point this year.
It would make
Because
no
what's
sense.
the point, excuse me, if he gets hurt again? Then you're talking the end of his career.
And the end of whatever could have started in Jets right now.
Right.
Jets have to go back to square one. the joke of the week was everybody making the fun of the fact that Aaron Rodgers dropped the bottle on the field. And everybody says, "Oh, why you can't?" It wasn't a bong; it was a bottle of tequila. Not that that makes it any better to bring Allen onto the field, but who
Let
cares?
me tell you something.
You have
I watched that game in an airport Monday night. The bottle of tequila was needed.
I, and I don't doubt it, but I'm just saying everybody is taking the attention off where it needs to be, and they're like Mike said, they're putting it on Aaron Rodgers. Talk about Zach Wilson. Give the kid a little confidence. Oh, on this play, he did great. Look what. Stop putting him down. Look, Mike or I couldn't play in the National Football League, but if we completed one pass for 5 yards, I would want to walk off the field, and my coach said to me, "See, you could do it." That's it. Then they would
I
carry
can't
me
do it.
off in an ambulance afterwards, but whatever. But
I don't throw a great spiral, so
so let's give the kid a little confidence and let's see what he can do. Let's give him one more chance tonight against this Raiders team that is literally due to be put in Bellevue.
thank you, Josh McDaniels.
Yes.
All right, one other quarterback piece of news, and then we'll get into some other stuff. Will Levis has been announced as the Titans starter for the rest of the year. This was the only direction the Tennessee Titans could go. Malik Willis hasn't been the answer. Ryan Tannehill's not your future. Keep playing Will Levis. It's the right move.
Will Levis, when he was drafted by the Titans, it kind of didn't make sense because they drafted Malik Willis to be that next spot. However, as we talked about in this podcast, not every number one quarterback you draft is going to be a home run. They tried out Malik Willis, they tried out Levis, and Levis was better. Obviously, seen by his play in the first few weeks. Mind you, having somebody like DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry kind of helps, but now you're getting the ball to receivers. And now this offense is going to open up a little bit more, and we could start seeing the Derrick Henry effect, 100-yard game, 2 touchdown games of Derrick Henry. And then when they start to try to stack the box and test this kid, you got Hopkins, right out there for you. So you can't say this kid doesn't have a chance to prove why they shouldn't invest more in him. I don't think Malik Willis is going to end up anywhere. I think he's going to end up like the Matt Corral situation and be that drafted quarterback who's going to be floating around until they find somebody.
Yeah, and Ryan Tannehill, listen, the Titans aren't good enough to win right now. See what you got in the young quarterbacks. And then Ryan Tannehill can go wherever he wants next year. So there's that in Tennessee. All right. We've gone off on a couple of things, but there's one team I've got to kind of go off on a little bit. I'm going to segue this. Talking to you, Buffalo Bills.
Poor Nate.
Not really poor Nate. He knows what he did. Every
Shout out to
year,
Nate Moser. Sorry.
every year for the last 4 years or so, we've embodied the Buffalo Bills as the Super Bowl contender. And we wouldn't be wrong when we say it. At some point, you have to prove it. And every time the Buffalo Bills were waiting for it, we're waiting for it. And it just feels like they've never recovered, Mark, for me. They've never recovered from 13 seconds with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Because last year they had some stuff happened that, wasn't good. But then the Bengals just punched them in the mouth in the playoffs. Then you come into this year. Expectations are high. Josh Allen's on the cover of Madden. And you go, okay. All right, is this the year the Bills triumph? And it hasn't looked that way. They've had injuries. They have had coaching issues to where the guy you shouted out in one of our group chats has changed his name to hashtag fire Ken Dorsey. Listen, they've had injuries on defense. I'm not getting into that. Gabe Davis, what happened to you? You were supposed to become the number 2 wide receiver on this team. And now I don't know what I'm getting from you week to week. You're now getting outperformed by a rookie tight end that's on a bunch of my fantasy teams. But that's a whole nother conversation. The offensive line hasn't been good. And I would love for someone in Buffalo who's probably got a face covered in wing sauce. Why the hell is James Cook getting 10 touches every week? Let the guy roll.
It's like the Bills are copying the Jets' philosophy. I don't understand it. Yes, Josh Allen can beat you with his legs and with his arm, but you can't do it every game. You got to give him a little bit of time. And the Bills, it hasn't been translating for them this year. The Bills were the front runner and a lot of analyst picks to be the top of the AFC East. I had it between who's there now and the Bills. And let me tell you, can the Bills come back and put together a season to get them into the playoffs? Yes. Can they win the AFC East? No, not the way they're playing. Their offensive play calling has to change.
Yeah. And listen, right now, they're not better than the Bengals. They're not better than the Chiefs. I don't think they're better than the Jags. And listen, I don't know if they're better than the Dolphins or not, but they beat the Dolphins first time, so I can't sit here and say anything negative about it. So they have to prove a point because if the season ended today, the Buffalo Bills are not in the playoff spot.
Correct.
And that is, if I were to tell you that before the season, you would tell me I'm nuts.
Uh, Absolutely. When you look at the combination of that team and the sign, the use of that first round pick, which right before Dallas, was Dalton Kincaid. They haven't used him to the full ability of him yet. And I understand he's a rookie and he's learning, but he's proven in a couple of games that he can make some big plays. Is he as agile as Sam Laporta in Detroit? No. But this kid wasn't gotten to be an agile tight end. He was gotten for his size. Let him use it.
Yeah, so the Bills are going to have to figure this one out sooner rather than later. They play tomorrow night. They'll play Denver, so they that should get them right.
Good.
But then they go into a stretch where they're playing the Jets, the Chiefs, and the Eagles.
Not to be followed by
Cowboys.
the Cowboys. Sorry, Nate.
All right. So that's Bills talk.
Yeah.
All right. So we mentioned the Bills would be out of the playoffs right now. The AFC playoff picture would feature a full division going to the playoffs. It ain't the East. It ain't the South. It ain't the West. The AFC North, if the season ended today, Mark, would send all 4 teams to the playoffs. Will they do it by the end of the year?
I think well, when you look at what's in the AFC North, I mean, there's a big divisional game there, and I believe that would be Cleveland, Baltimore today.
Yeah, we will
And
get into that game.
and Cleveland, we'll get, like Mike said, I don't want to jump into that. I think that's the biggest matchup, and I think that's how we're going to view it. Is going to be after this week because we're going to see a little bit of movement, especially with Pittsburgh playing Green Bay. You got Cleveland and Baltimore playing. So, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No.
I think the shock is Pittsburgh because I thought before the year this was the year that they're going to go They're finally going to finish under 500 in the Tomlin era. Now, let me base this off the fact of their schedule has been ridiculously kind of smooth for them. And they'll continue to get smooth because newsflash, they're going to go to 6-3. They're going to beat the Packers today. Sorry, Patch. But they've been really good. I still don't trust Kenny Pickett. Cleveland's Cleveland's defense has
Is the best
protected
in
what.
football.
Listen, if Cleveland's defense wasn't so good, we'd be talking about the Deshaun Watson issue in Cleveland, and there's been
Yeah.
a lot of that. Baltimore, they've been flawless. Well, they've been really good.
I
Here's
mean,
the and
yeah,
then
yeah.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Um,
As you can see, I
I
didn't mention them when I was talking, but we knew they were there.
listen. I'm going to quote the greatest poet of our life, Eminem, because guess who's back? Guess who's back? Joe Burrow is back. He's
Well, with
not dealing with.
76, yeah,
Go
well,
ahead.
no, with a 76% completion percentage over the last 2 weeks, now we're seeing the resurgence of what we saw last year.
And Joe Burrow's healthy. They won't have T. Higgins today, but when T. Higgins is healthy, they have the best trio of wide receivers in the league with Chase, Higgins, and Boyd.
I won't argue with you on that because you're not wrong.
Joe Mixon is a very good running back. And by the way, someone get Lou Anarumo a real head coaching gig. The job he does with that defense every year.
Yeah, well, to see what his contract is, see what he has left. But this Cleveland offense isn't anything to shy away from either. Now that Deshaun Watson is back behind the helm, and for the first time last week, he looked really healthy and really good. You know, with his connections to Ford and passing to Amari Cooper, he looked healthy. He looked like he had a good rub down before the game started, and he was ready to let the ball go. The defense, on the other hand, earned massages after the way they've been playing. So it's very hard to take this Cleveland team lightly because at any time this team can beat you either way.
And the team they're playing today, Baltimore.
That's going to be some game.
I mean, Lamar's playing at an MVP level.
Oh yeah,
They got Odell Beckham on the board last week. Zay Flowers has been up and down, but you can get him going. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is the second best tight end in the league behind Travis Kelce.
yeah, I don't disagree there.
The offensive line has been good. And then you talk about the Brown defense. What about the Raven defense and what they
Top
did
scoring
last week to
defense in football.
Seattle?
Yeah, top scoring defense in football. So I mean,
Oh, this is going to be
it's
oh
not the Ray Lewis era
no.
defense, but it's not one that you could say you brush off your shoulder. Uh, whether this game comes down to the battle of the defenses, which I really think it is about, because if Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson have 400-yard days and 5 touchdowns, then the game is in the true play game in my mind. This game should be a 3 point at the most between for a win. This one is very hard.
You said 3 points.
Yes.
That's the X factor. Justin Tucker,
Yeah.
any Raven game is the X factor.
Yeah. And with his ability to hit from 60 yards out, depending on obviously what the weather and wind is doing, you have to factor that in that could very well possibly be the ending of this game.
Yeah.
Is one
So
field goal to win it.
listen, this game should be awesome, uh, physical. It's going to be really good. Watch it. If you don't get it on TV, find a stream for it.
Yeah.
That to me is the best game of the day. but we'll digress. In Mark's mind, it's the Cowboy game because
Oh, look, I'm on location today in Millwood, New York. I'm here with my mom because we have a good tradition where we watch the Giant Dallas games together. And I love doing it. And even she knows. She's like, "What's the point of playing the game?" She's like, I don't want to watch 65 to nothing. I said, "You think you're being generous there?" I said, "This could be the first 100-point game in the NFL history." He said, "Oh God, thank God it's not in New York." And I said, "Yep." My mother's been a very loyal Giants fan for over 50 years. And she is so disappointed in her son being a Cowboys fan.
I know the feeling of sons with disappointment. All right. So we talked a little bit about Browns, Ravens. We'll talk about another AFC North team because we were talking about the Bengals, and they are hosting today the 4-4 Houston Texans.
Well, wow. Let's just even forget about the other team for now. Let's just talk about the Houston Texans.
But let's do it.
Yeah, the CJ Stroud, when he was drafted, we knew it was going to be a combination, whether it was Stroud one, Young two, or Young one, Stroud two. We knew it was a combination that way. Both quarterbacks were fantastic to be where they are. Obviously, Houston had the better setup for CJ Stroud, as you can see. They went out and got Devin Singletary to help with Damian Pierce to give Damian Pierce a little bit of a change of pace. They went and drafted Tank Dell. Who's having a great year. Will Anderson is having a great season. How about this? CJ Stroud is having one of the best rookie seasons I've watched in a long time of a quarterback. And not just because of what he did last week, but we're not going to say 450 yards and 5 touchdowns is anything to shy at, even if it is against Atlanta. I don't
Tampa
care.
Bay.
Sorry, even if it was against Tampa Bay, I don't care. It was close. They're in the same direction in the southeast of the country.
Same division.
Yeah, so I was in the right area. No, it doesn't matter. They're coached by NFL ranked defenses. He picked apart that team with a low level. Could you imagine if DeAndre Hopkins was still there? Would we have seen the first 300-yard receiver that day?
And you said Tampa. This is a Tampa team that's 3 years removed from winning a Super Bowl with a lot of the same parts on that defense. So what he did, by the way, I got to give him credit. D'Amico Ryans,
Yes,
stand up, sir. Take a bow, because
absolutely.
I listen. I know the Texans are 4-4, and I know there are other candidates. But if D'Amico Ryans isn't on your top 5 list right now for Coach of the Year, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Because this is going to go into a little side tangent, and I apologize for that. Coach of the Year should not mean best record. Coach of the Year means not the coach who took a bad team and made them good. It's about showing a change and a turnaround in play. The Houston Texans, the last couple of years have been unwatchable. Now they have a head coach, they have a quarterback, they have drafted very well,
Yes.
and they are turning this thing around quicker than you probably imagine. So shout out to Miko Ryans for it, bringing the culture. So, and then flip side it's the Texans look like the team they're playing against a little bit. The Bengals, they've drafted well. They got a home run hit in the quarterback. They got a home run hit, looks like, in the head coach. And now you just got to put it together like the Bengals have.
Well, this game is going to be a very interesting game because I don't rely on the Cincinnati defense a lot. They're
Mm-hmm.
not that solid. The offense we've talked about, we know what's on the offense. The question is can CJ Stroud, and yes, I'm putting it on him because he is the quarterback, Can he have a repeat week? And I'm not saying he has to have 5 touchdowns here, but I'm saying 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. And though, and an interception is possible when you're throwing the ball that much. So let's say a possibility for an interception, even though he didn't throw one last week. Could there be an upset in this game? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Am I
And
going to say it's going to be? No, but it's an absolute possibility.
yeah, it's a Texans team that, listen, they've gotten some big wins early. They beat Jacksonville on the road. They beat Tampa Bay. They've they've got a team, man. They've got a good team. All right. So, and CJ Stroud returns to Ohio State legend. Talked a little bit Browns, Ravens. How's this one for an interconference showdown? We get the Niners and the Jags. The Niners will get Trent Williams and Debo Samuel both back, which
And
is
that's
huge.
And we're not saying that because Trent Williams takes up a whole half of the field just standing out there by himself. No,
Oh my God.
Trent Williams is the Tyron Smith of the NFC West. He's that good. So it's Tyron Smith. Trent Williams makes a huge difference because now Brock Purdy is going to get that extra second he's been missing. And that 1 second is a pass to Ayuk, a pass to Kittle, or a pass to Samuel, or a quick check down to McCaffrey. I'm not saying Debo Samuel is not the biggest thing, but Trent Williams is the key piece returning that can bring this offense back to where it was.
Yeah, Trent Williams is huge. Debo's also huge because Debo allows you to do some different things with Kittle and Ayuk and even McCaffrey to an extent. Because that plethora of weapons that they have is just, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, Brock Purdy's going to struggle at times. He's a young quarterback. I think the best thing to happen to the Niners outside of getting Trent Williams and Debo Samuel back was they're coming off the bye week. They get a little bit of a moment to decompress, reset, and they come back. So that's a huge part. Flip side, the Jags
Having
six
an
and
L.
two. Oh boy, they're good.
Trevor Lawrence, finally, not finally, because we saw him last year, but it seems that this offense has now gotten comfortable over the last couple of weeks with ETN, not with being that dual threat, being whether he can receive out of the backfield or take it up the middle. You have Calvin. I'm gonna gamble whether he cares or not. Ridley, and he'll go over the middle and take a hit if he has to.
Mm-hmm.
Got everybody else, whether they're getting one reception for 3 yards or 5 yards, is chipping in, and you can see there's a unity in this team. And this game today, yeah, is probably the game of the week, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is a good one too. He's played. The defense has played okay at times for the Jags.
I
They
mean,
need they need their Josh Allen to get to Brock Purdy a little bit,
and they're
but
going to need Trayvon Walker as well to try to eye and control Christian McCaffrey, which even Micah Parsons couldn't do. And he said trying to control him is like throwing somebody a wet bar soap.
I listen. Trayvon passing on Aiden Hutchinson for Trayvon Walker still just baffles
I
my mind.
still haven't figured that out, but you see what happens. Every choice has a consequence.
Yeah. Speaking of Aiden Hutchinson, Lions Chargers today. The Chargers are still around the AFC playoff picture. The Lions lead the NFC North, and they can make another big statement with a win today.
So I cover the Lions, and you can go check out the article at the website www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. The Lions have an opportunity, and as I said in the article, to do something today, because after this, their next 5 games is twice against the Bears, and then teams that are well under 500, Denver, and I believe the Saints are the other ones that they're going to face. They win today, they can realistically be 12-2 come Christmas. I said the Lions were going to be good. I said they have a real potential to win the NFC North. I did not even think this was a possibility, but now it really is, as the Lions really have that team working for them. They got David Montgomery back this week. So you got Jameer Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield. You got Amon St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Josh Reynolds at wide receiver. And you got rookie sensation Sam Laporta at tight end. Jared Goff is feeling very, very confident. And that's where you want him. He's making the right throws. I don't care if he throws a pick a day. As long as they're winning, it doesn't matter. And this Lions team is very, very strong.
Just go off your point. After today, the Lions play the Bears next week. Then they get the Packers on
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
the Packers, right?
Then
Forgot
it's
about
at the Saints, at the Bears, Broncos.
Okay, I forgot about the Packer game. So
So did Patchy.
they could, I mean, throw the Packers in there. The Packers aren't that great. I mean, no offense, Patch, sorry, but 13-2 now even looks even more possible. And then at that point is where you start considering if you've won the NFC North at that point, you don't want to take your guys out of a fluid situation because if you can claim home field advantage, then you take your break. But don't go on a boat down into the Caribbean somewhere and hang out.
Taking shirtless photos.
Yes.
All right. The last game we'll talk about, and it's only because they have the same record. We have the Saints and the Vikings.
And this isn't a quick, important game, more for the Vikings than the Saints. The Saints are, still trying to decide who they are with the combination of weapons they have, but they're not doing it defensively, and that's where the problems have been. This is a prime game for Joshua Dobbs to keep Minnesota alive because Minnesota is the only team that realistically can really threaten the Lions at any time. Now, without Kirk Cousins, it becomes a little iffier, but Josh Dobbs plays at 125%. He
Yeah,
goes out there and he goes crazy. They do not have KJ Osborne. They will not have obviously Justin Jefferson, even though he possibly will be back next week.
next week is what I've
Next
heard.
week, he'll possibly be back. So if you can get a win this week and try to keep pace, not an easy thing to do. You get a win this week, it's a possibility.
Yeah. And for the Saints, the defense, just keep doing what you're doing, pressure Josh Dobbs. Don't let him do what he did to Atlanta, beat you with his legs.
Right.
Because I don't think Madison's going to beat you. And Derek Carr has to do what he's done most of the year. I'm not sure if Michael Thomas is playing after he got arrested. So,
Yeah, but the arrest has to do not with anything trivial. This has to do with
no, no,
somebody
no.
being on his property. The
Sometimes a
NFL
team
is
would just
looking past
scratch a
it.
guy, so I'm not sure.
The NFL is looking past it. That he is active for today.
All right.
So
So those are the bigger games of today. Mark, who's the fantasy player of the day?
I'm going to tell you right now, the Dallas defense. Okay, I'm sorry. It's the Dallas
I was
defense.
going to go there, so I'm okay
It's
with
it's not going to be sunny in Philadelphia for Danny DeVito. He's going to be eating a lot of turf, whether it's from Micah Parsons, Tex Lawrence, whether Ozigizua gets in there, Jonathan Hankins. The whole team is going to register a sack. I wouldn't put it beyond the possibility of a 10-sack game. I don't know if there's ever been one. I know there's been plenty of eights, but I don't know if there's ever been a 10-sack, 7 interception, 5 defensive touchdown game. But that's who the fantasy player of the day is.
All right. That's a good one. You stole it from me. I was going to go there, but I'll go different level. How about this? Kyler Murray returns to the Cardinal lineup. You know what? I don't like doing. I love doing them. Bold prediction to end the show. The Arizona Cardinals beat the Atlanta Falcons today. in Kyler's debut. They win outright. If you're a gambler, take the Cardinals with the points. I'm all in on the Cardinals today. All right. That'll do it for the Week 10 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood here on the Sports Cincinnati Network YouTube channel. You can follow the socials. We're on Twitter at SInsanityReal. We're also on Facebook. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. The blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. The old ops guy, Mark Halpern. I'm Mike Griffin. We will talk to you next week here on the Sunday Sideline Report. Enjoy week 10, everybody. I can't believe we're already at week 10.
You got it.
All right.